What are some tools to fight the fight about doing the way things have always been? That's what we'll be talking about on this episode of the Store Connect podcast. My name is Andy Johns, your host with Pioneer, and I'm joined on this episode by David Naylor, who is, in addition to being the CEO at Rayburn Electric Cooperative, he is also the author of Status Quo is Not Company Policy. David, thanks so much for joining me.
Happy to be here. Thanks, Andy.
So we have enjoyed working with the folks over at Rayburn for quite a while, and when I saw this book came out, I knew that I wanted to have David on an episode here, because I know a lot of folks status quo sometimes, David, is just so dang comfortable. It's hard to shake things up. But tell us a little bit about the idea of the book. Status quo is not company policy.
Sure. So, I will tell you my natural inclination for reading books is more like, Calvin and the Hobbes and comics. But
Okay. All right.
This was one that when an opportunity presented itself, it was a great opportunity for Rayburn to help increase our profile and everything. But status quo is not company policy. The utility space is very much an industry where you ask a question of why are we doing things a certain way, and the response is because we've always done it that way.
Right.
And when I first took over as CEO here at Rayburn, we had a lot of projects that had to get done, had tight deadlines. We'd had 3 employees who retired, representing 84 years of experience, walking out the door, and we just had a lot of challenges that we faced. And again, we only had at that time about 25 employees. And so it was a phrase that really was born out of necessity, just saying practically, guys, we can't keep doing what we've been doing and meet these deadlines that we have to meet. And so status quo is not company policy. That's where it was born. And then as Rayburn has continued to grow, it's really expanded and really become part of one of our core values of innovation, it anchors that. And as we continue to add new employees, that's one of the things we encourage them to do is, hey, look at what we're doing. Does it still make sense? And if not, then, hey, let's improve the processes.
Sure. And it was interesting to me reading through the books. To full disclosure, I have not finished it yet. I know that my boss Ann Harvey had just finished it this week. We were talking about it, but in reading through the book, I expected it to be a lot of kind of high-minded ideas. I've read a lot of leadership books before. What I thought is interesting about this book is this is really the story of Rayburn Electric Cooperative. There are employees quoted in here. There are board members quoted in here. The examples you use, you talk about that growth. You've got the chart, and I saw in one of the pages where it talks about the number of folks hired and the head count going up. This is really a lot more than just a bunch of ideas from the CEO. This is really the story of Rayburn Electric Cooperative.
Yeah, and that was really I think that's who Rayburn is. I may be the CEO in the face as far as, where we've been, but what makes Rayburn is the employees. And, I think, well, I can certainly tell you some of my ideas and some of my thoughts, and I may have been instrumental in terms of helping chart the path, if you will.
Sure.
It's the employees who have to implement it. And they're the ones who have to deal with it and have to figure things out. And, so their successes are our successes, and my successes are their successes. And that's, it's a combination of who Rayburn is. Look, at the end of the day, we're here to serve our members. That's our first and foremost priority. But the way that gets done is our employees. And so, making sure that they were included in the process and included in like you said, a lot of quotes from them, a lot of quotes from our board. This may have been my initial thought, but it's got a lot of contributions from various folks here who have really helped to make Rayburn.
Yeah, clearly. This section in here, you talk about some of the core values. You talk about the Rayburn DNA. You mentioned in here, it's so easy to coast, and we know that's true. There's so there's so much the temptation to just stay with the way things have always been. But you talk about Rayburn being a value focused organization rather than just a product or project focused organization. Tell me a little bit about what it means to be value focused rather than project focused.
Yeah. So, like I mentioned, when I first took over, we had, the situation that we had, we were about to become a transmission operator as defined by NERC. So we had a whole bunch of compliance obligations we had to meet. We had a power supply contract that was about to terminate and had a hard, fast deadline. And so, and we had, in order to meet all these deadlines, we had to build about $40 million worth of projects between a substation, a couple of short transmission lines. And so we had all these things and projects that had to be done. And so what we ended up doing, I mean, we met the deadlines, but we were hiring employees because we needed to get things done. And so everything was geared towards those deadlines. And what we found was that's well and good while we're all busy, focused in on a common, task and project. But when things started to slow down a bit, you start to realize, wait a minute, I'm not sure that this person really fits the culture of what Rayburn is trying to do. And you start heading into, well, all right, now I'm trying to manage. The management process becomes more prevalent, if you will. When everybody's looking towards a common goal, you kind of just the management stuff kind of gets shifted towards the back. And so we recognize that, hey, this is not who we want to be. This is not really who we are. And we really need to shift our focus, and let's focus on these values. And that way the values drive everything that we do, not the projects. And that means, again, our core values are pretty, respect, integrity, excellence, and innovation. Ironically, 3 out of those 4 were shared by Enron, for what that's worth.
But, I don't know that I would put it that way usually, but yeah.
I didn't realize that either, but it was brought to my attention not too long ago, and I thought, well, that's interesting, but
turns out that integrity one is a key one.
So ironically, innovation is the one that's different, but Enron's 4th was communication, and ours is innovation. But I mean, it just illustrates the point. You can have all the values you want, you better walk them. And you got to walk the walk and talk the talk. And so as we shifted from being project focused to value focused, we wanted to make sure, one, we're walking the walk. We're exercising our core values. They're not just words up on a wall or on a piece of paper somewhere. This is who we are. This is the Rayburn DNA. And as we hire people, those are the core values that we're looking for. Those are the traits that we're wanting to make sure that, hey, we got somebody that, if there is a questionable thing that pops up, to follow along with the Enron thing, hey, they're going to say something. Say, look, this doesn't line up with who Rayburn is or who I am personally. And then we say, yep, that's absolutely right. Let's fix it. Status quo is not company policy. Let's take care of it and stay true to who we are and those core values.
One of those things in here, especially if you're going to be as innovative as having innovation in one of your core values there, it talks about mistakes being okay. And I like the line in here: failure avoidance is not a productive mindset if you believe in pushing the status quo. And I think that's the trap that so many folks fall into. The status quo is safe. You're not going to get called out for making a mistake by doing things the way they've always been. It's easy to get called out and get in trouble for trying something that's different. So I like that piece in there, but I'm sure it's, that's got to be top down and much easier said than done to make sure that everybody feels like it's okay to make mistakes.
Yeah, without a doubt, it's balance. I mean, look, I can't sit here and tell you that there are certain mistakes that you're like, look, I can't, that's just it. Fair. You're sorry, but that's unavoidable. But the reality is most of the things, look, you reflect on your own career and how you came up, and you recognize that, man, you know what? I made some mistakes along the way, but I was given the time and the opportunity to learn from those mistakes and then improve. And so that's really what we're trying to do. What we want to do is say, look, yeah, we don't want you to make mistakes, but we recognize that mistakes happen. And really, this is where the excellence core value comes into play. Excellence is not perfection, so we're not asking for perfection. What we're asking you to do is do your best, and what we want to happen is your best tomorrow is better than your best today, and it was better than your best was yesterday. And so you're continuing to grow, you're continue to develop, and again, I mean, if every time you make a mistake, you got a lot of consequences. Then also fear starts coming in, and you've got to have that mentality of complacency. Just can't. We've got to fight complacency, and I'd rather have folks who take that risk and take that step to try to make an improvement, and then we can help rein them in and give them some training if we need to from there. But again, you've wasted a lot of time, effort, and frankly, cost. If just because you make a mistake, you're gone. I mean, that's just not the mentality that we want to have here.
Right, right. Well said. I do want to get into here in just a minute a little bit about the art of publishing a book and kind of how that process went for you, and even the reasoning why you felt like it was an important thing to do. But before we do that, just to stay a little bit more on the kind of organizational philosophy piece of it. Chapter 7 of the book, you're talking about Winter Storm Uri. That is an inflection point, a watershed moment, not just for y'all, for utilities all over Texas and Oklahoma in particular, but really the whole Southeast or the southern part of the United States. Tell us a little about how an event like that kind of brings things like this into razor sharp focus for you.
Well, I mean, I can tell you when you have an event like a Winter Storm Uri, and so in Rayburn's case, we incurred 3 years of power cost in a 5-day period. And it was, there's plenty of articles and public information that's out there on what all that happened. But for Rayburn's case, that was a very significant event. And it's amazing how 5 days out of a year can impact not only that 1 year, but it continues to impact how we operate and think today. And,
Sure.
That was, again, that was really, like you said, it was really a watershed moment. And of course, one of the things that happened as we went through Winter Storm Uri here in Texas is, the largest G&T in Texas filed bankruptcy. And, that G&T was about 3 times the size of Rayburn. And, so you don't have the luxury of pulling out the CEO manual to say, well, okay, in the event of we got a winter storm, okay, here's what you do, steps 1, 2, and 3. That's not there. And so nice. You're flying by the seat of your pants in a lot of ways. I've got to deal with my board who recognize that, oh my gosh, we got 3 years of power cost, cooperative. I don't have an investor that can eat that. It's going to have to go to the members in some form or fashion at some point. And so we're trying to figure out, have those conversations. So we immediately pivot to having, we have our normal monthly board meetings, but all of a sudden we're having weekly calls. Hey, here's what's an update. We brought in additional counselors or advisors, both financial advisors, legal advisors. We even had some political and lobbyists that we brought in. Again, trying to solve the problem of, first off, let's understand what happened. Second, let's figure out, how we're going to meet this need. Not to mention, we got, folks saying, hey, you got bills that are due. How are you going to pay for them?
Right.
That's just the board side of the things, if you will. But in the meantime, I've got all these employees, and we had hired several employees just a few months before this happened, and largest G&T in Texas files for bankruptcy. People see that in the news, and immediately we pivot and say, okay, guys, let's a company meeting. Here's what's going on. And so,
right.
We had those meetings about every week as well. And I just get in front of the group and say, guys, here's what happened. Here's what's going on. Here's how we're trying to approach that. Yes, I was very upfront. We had a G&T that filed bankruptcy. I'll be honest with you. I got a bankruptcy filing in front of me ready if that's the option that we end up deciding. And here's what that would entail on the impact from on the rest of you. But again, I tell them that's our least objectionable. I mean, that's the last resort. We don't want to do that. And of course, ultimately, we ended up being able to do securitization to meet the, pay those bills. So everybody was paid from that Rayburn owed. Anyway, I can probably talk more about Winter Storm Uri than anybody cares to. The bottom line is we don't want to ever go through that again.
Yeah, right. Definitely. Well, let me shift gears away from the kind of the content of the book and the Rayburn story and get into a little bit about writing the book. So that's something I've never done. I'm assuming this is the first time that you had written one. What all kind of surprised you about the process of it's kind of intimidating, just all that those blank pages in front of you, finding something to say. What surprised you about the book writing process?
Yeah, so I'll give a lot of props here to Heidi Scott, the co-author, and I will tell you this. This was originally going to be. She was originally going to be ghostwrite the book, and typical Rayburn fashion, status quo is not company policy. As we were working through it, say, look, I don't think ghostwriting is going to be the right way to do this. Let's put your name out there and take the credit that you really, frankly, that you deserve. Mm-hmm. So, this was not on my bucket list, not on something I was looking to do. Frankly, I think it was a result of Winter Storm Uri. I think that's probably where Forbes kind of came across Rayburn, and ultimately they reached out. And, from Rayburn's standpoint, this was, again, how do we increase our profile? That was one of the challenges we faced during Uri was nobody knew who Rayburn was. And prior to Uri, frankly, we were comfortable being the best kept secret in Texas or even the nation. Sure. But that's not the case now. But no, Heidi came in and, the initials process, it was actually really good. We just talked. She'd ask questions and, she had everything recorded and we talked and then she talked to the employees and the board members and then they just all the stories kind of started coming together. We had a couple of other folks here from Gentry Ewing and Chris Anderson from Rayburn to kind of help part of the team, if you will, and so they Heidi came one day and we kind of put some big old not whiteboards but sheets of paper on all around our boardroom. Here's a story, and then you just start pushing pieces together, and then you start refining the process and go from there. I mean, it probably took a little over a year, all told. There's some times are certainly more fun than others, but you work through that, and it was very interesting. It's definitely a learning experience for me.
Well, you talked about there being a hypothetical CEO's manual. To have a book like this with your name on it, kind of telling that Rayburn story, to have so many folks from the co-op involved and quoted in the text, it certainly helps. I know when we've talked, your goal, like you said, to step out from the background and really be one of the preeminent G&Ts around the country. So, I mean, it's a great opportunity. In terms of positioning Rayburn, to have the CEO with a book out talking about status quo, in terms of communications strategy and position. I know that it sounds like kind of the opportunity kind of fell your way, but couldn't have asked for a better opportunity to kind of help position Rayburn and yourself as thought leaders in the space.
Yeah, no, it was great. I mean, that was definitely when I first get the call from Forbes about doing this, I'm like, I got to talk to my board about this, and so that was something that again, in your CEO manual, talking to your board about a book that's a little not something that is very common, I would think, or at least not that I found, and certainly it wasn't in my CEO manual. But to the point we talked about earlier, told them, said, guys, look, this is we're talking about a way to increase Rayburn's profile. While this may not have been on a list of options we had considered, here's an opportunity that presents itself. And frankly, that's one of the things about Rayburn. We like to be opportunistic, and so took advantage of it. And I guess I'd probably be remiss to say all the proceeds of the book actually reduce our member rates. So it's
There's that. Yeah. Um, so, and we talk a lot about storytelling. Obviously, the podcast is called Story Connect. The book seems, from the sections of it that I've read, I mean, it seems like a pretty authentic account, especially getting into the the Winter Storm Uri. Was it anytime that you tell stories and you're going to publish it and you don't know who all is going to read the book? Was some of that uncomfortable sharing some of those stories, or is it the kind of thing that just comes natural, and that was a decision to make, to go ahead and tell those stories, get that out there?
well, I mean, I think at the end of the day, all we can do is be who we are, and so that's kind of the approach that we took. Is, guys, look, this is our story. People may like it, people may not like it. That's who we are, and I'm not trying to sugarcoat anything. I'm not trying to badmouth anything. It's just this is who we are. This is what's worked for us, and I think that's it's our day to day. It's how we live things here at Rayburn and what we really want to accomplish. That's not to say that we're perfect. Not to say we still don't have challenges, but it's a process. And I think that's really what that's the whole point of the book is while status quo is not company policy, you're always trying to improve and always trying to get better. And so hopefully folks who read it, I mean, maybe can take a few things from that book and make it applicable to what they've got, whether they're a cooperative, whether they're somebody else, whether they're in the electric utility industry or not. That's I think some of these principles I think are applicable regardless. But I think it's certainly been successful for us here. And, honestly, I look forward to seeing where we're going to continue to go.
Yeah. Have you gotten any feedback, or have there been any members or board members or employees or folks around the industry that have read it and had any feedback for you or anything?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been pretty well received. It's certainly been doing well on Amazon in terms of, bestsellers in several categories. I know several of my managers, my board members, I guess you should say, general managers, they bought several of them and they're passing them out to some of their folks. I was just at the Texas Electric Cooperative statewide, their managers meeting, and they asked me to speak on it. And then they also want me to speak on it at their directors conference. Of course, I'm doing a podcast here, and I know we've got some others that I've got lined up as well. But so, it seems to be pretty well received. I guess the proof's in the pudding, and hopefully we'll actually see folks who say, look, I took this and I implemented it, and man, here's how it took off. I mean, that's really what you want, right?
Yeah. If there's a little less status quo around the electric co-op space, I think that a lot of folks might benefit from that. I highlighted a couple of sections that I mentioned earlier about mistakes being okay and some of that Rayburn DNA. Was there anything else that I missed, or that you wanted to share? Any big other takeaways from the book that you want to be sure folks don't miss?
I can't necessarily think of any. Well, I guess the other one the only other thing that I probably kind of mention is, at the end of the day, when it comes to what we're trying to do with status quo is not company policy and developing our employees, it really takes a commitment. And you're not going to, if you're looking for a quick fix, I don't think this is a quick fix. I think what we saw was a culmination of events, culmination of time. It's people who are willing to step up and take responsibility, take accountability, and be willing to essentially leave a legacy here and say, hey, I want to make a difference. And so it's giving them that opportunity, and then being committed to that process, and not just saying, man, you know what, I tried this for a couple of weeks, it's just not working out. That's not going to work. You've got to give it the time. People go through training. Exactly. You're trying to get them better and better. You're expanding their comfort zones, right? What we're comfortable today is great, but if I'm going to grow, my comfort zone has to continue to get better or get bigger.
Sure. I think those are Those are wise words. Well, David, congratulations. I had the book right before this call. I had it back between Patrick Lencioni and Simon Sinek on my bookshelf here, so that's not bad company. Congratulations for coming out with the book, and it is available on Amazon if anybody wants to check it out. It's Status Quo is not the company policy, or is not company policy, and I think folks will enjoy it. So congratulations on coming out with the book, and thanks for joining me.
So I appreciate it. Thank you.
He is David Naylor, CEO at Rayburn Electric Cooperative in Texas. I'm your host, Andy Johns with Pioneer. And until we talk again, keep telling your story.
Story Connect is produced by Pioneer Utility Resources, a communications cooperative that is built to share your story. Story Connect is engineered by Lucas Smith of Lucky Sound Studio.